All right, so welcome to today's webinar. I'm excited to have Randy Stanbury from 4-Level Coach joining us today. He's going to do a talk on Pricing Mastery Simplified. So I really appreciate everyone coming out. This is going to be an awesome talk. I've really enjoyed working with Randy. You know, he's got a really awesome group going and very much a master in many things, but I've seen him really help take contractors to the next level with his coaching program. So appreciate you being on today. A couple of housekeeping things that we're going to go through. Again, if you're not part of our JobTread Facebook group, definitely want to make sure everyone gets out, gets on there. We've got a really awesome, engaged, connected community here that we, just really appreciate everyone's input and helping each other out to learn and grow and share, best practices, tips, tricks. So it's a really great community. Be sure to hop on there. If you're not following along with Builder Stories, it's our podcast where we interview, builders and contractors and just kind of learn from their stories and their journeys, all the lessons that they've learned along the way, how they've built their businesses. Today we had Tom Morris from the Sela Group, got a really awesome, very insightful episode. Be a visionary, invest in technology. He's also going to be one of our speakers at JobTread Connect, so be sure to tune into that. We've had several others over the last couple of weeks. Definitely want to catch that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, whatever your fancy is. You can tune in anywhere there, or you can just go to builderstories.com. Also want to give a shout out to JobTread Connect. So we are well underway getting that planning going. We've got 3-day user conference in Dallas, Texas. 32 ed sessions this year, lots of keynotes, roundtables, networking. Really going to help you become a JobTread pro. Teach you how to build your power team, sharpen your business skills, lots of awesome, opportunities to collaborate with not only the JobTread team, but, other businesses that are similar to yours, but maybe located in a different area. So definitely want to make sure you can make it to that event. We are doing a webinar tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central, just kind of what to expect, a little bit more about the event. So be sure to tune into that as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce everyone here to Randy Stanbury from 4-Level Coach. They've got group coaching, one-on-one elite coaching that they do, marketing, sales tools, financial and pricing help. They are part of the JobTread marketplace. So, if you like what you hear today, you think Randy would be a great person to get connected to, you can go directly to the JobTread marketplace to get connected to them and reach out. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Randy, and let you go ahead and share your screen.
All right. Fantastic. And thank you, Eric. You know what? I think we should have a shout out for Eric and his team. I mean, we love what you guys do at JobTread. Amazing, fantastic software that's, taking the market by storm. I personally love it. A huge fan. We advocate it for our group. And here's why. We're going to get into pricing here today, talk about this pricing mastery simplified and go through the 5 things that you must know, the 7 mistakes to avoid. And this is why it's going to be so simplified and break down for you. And really the only 4 ways to increase profit. But the JobTread platform at its core is built on the financial side of things, which is why I love it so much, right? Because we have to profit before we can grow. So we profit before growth. Let's get the money right first. It's the only way to the next level. So let's dive into this. Who we are, just a little bit about who we are. We only work with builders and remodelers, so everything we do and have is specifically for you. We typically work with builders that are above $1 million to 10 that wants to scale to 25 plus while removing you from the day-to-day. Now, we also have a farm system. Part of our farm system are those guys that are doing under $1 million. So if your business is under $1 million, we still have a program that works very, very, very well with everything that you need to get to that $1 million and beyond. Okay. We also have a best-selling book, The Small Business Freedom Formula. You can listen to our podcast if you wish on the Building Freedom podcast. If you haven't heard about us, or you can find out more there, featured in a number of different medias. We have partnerships. So we have really partnership stake. So percentage stake in 10 different businesses. These are all building remodeling businesses across Canada and the US, along with our partners like JobTread here at the bottom. Builder funnel, another one of them, Canadian contractor, Michigan builder's license. And so we're constantly building out our partnerships and growing not just our business, but our really direct one-on-one partners that we work with as well. Bonuses, guys, you have and are spending your time here. And so by doing that, I value that. We want to leave you with some bonuses. So one is our pricing for profit tool. I'm going to break down pricing. We're going to simplify it, and then I'll make it even more simple by handing you the formula. This is our pricing tool. It's our profit tool. It's our formula that basically removes all the pricing guesswork. You have to put 4 numbers into this tool, and it'll spit out exactly what you need to charge to hit certain gross profit margins, net profit margins, based on how your business is currently operating. And the other bonus I'd like to leave you with is the new book we've just written and will be launching very shortly is the Elite Builder Sales System. Why does that tie into pricing? Because if you're going to charge more, you have to close more deals at higher price points. That's what the book's all about. How to show up differently, really ask for more money and close the deal. Right. So that's an important piece to increasing price. Also, one of the things that we're going to leave you with here today is an opportunity to utilize our cash calculator. So this isn't a cash assessment. Why is this so important? Because at the end of the day, one of the most important things that we have to do is make more money in our business if we're ever going to grow and scale. So what we get asked all the time from everyone that ever, gets to us is, what should I be making? What could I be making? What should I be charging? What markup should I be charging? At the bottom line, how should I be pricing my jobs compared to the industry? And so going through this assessment is going to give us the information we need. We need 8 numbers from you, and we'll calculate everything else and spit it back, done for you, and then show you exactly what you could and should be doing. And so this is extremely valuable tool. Everyone should take advantage of this, and we'll have this at the end for you. So grab a notepad. I'm going to bust through this stuff extremely quickly. It'll be coming at you like a fire hose. So you know what? Grab a notepad, make some notes throughout this. I think the recording, no doubt, will be available as well. But always good to make and capture some notes along the way. What we're going to be talking about is this, what we refer to as our Sweet 16, the 5 things you must know, the 7 common pricing mistakes, and then the only 4 ways to increase profit. This will also be a bonus at the end. You'll get a download so you can, copy this or get a copy of this, pin it on your wall, keep it on your desk, so that these are the things that you'll be thinking through as you price your next projects, right? And we always talk about this, guys. If we're just running to the next job and we don't slow down to speed up and really figure out how we should be pricing better using a formula and a tool like we're going to share with you, then we're really just jumping in the truck to go to the next job, and we don't know if we're making the right money or what we should be charging. So, guys, let's get that figured out today and not go another day without that, not another price that gets spit out without knowing these things. So the 5 things that we must know is, one is, this is a big one. If you already know this, fantastic. You may know these 5, you may not, or maybe you're hearing it for the 2nd or 3rd time, but it's just sinking in, right? So whatever the case is for you, that's fine. If we're just hearing this for the 3rd and 4th time, hopefully it's like, got it. Finally, I got it, right? So markup, what's the difference between markup and margin, right? Markup is what we're charging, a percentage markup on top of our cost typically. And so therefore, what we have to understand, there is a difference between our markup and our margin, or our gross profit that we're left with to pay our overhead and our bills, right, to run the business. And so if we're looking at, we often hear that we are charging somewhere between 20-30%. And if let's just look at 30%, 30% is actually a 23.08% margin. Very important to know. We must know that. Otherwise, we're going to be pricing. And the other thing we must know is what our break even, what our overheads are, because that will determine what our actual percentages that we need here is. So let's not be pricing anything anymore without knowing how our business operates. And I'm going to share with you today. So we also must know how to read and understand our profit and loss statement, right? And so this is just an example of a profit and loss, just sort of broken down. This is actually pulled right from our profit formula tool, by the way. we have this off to the side. And this is because when we do a price, when we actually spit together and pull together a number, I want you to run it through, and this will do everything automatically for you. It's all formula based, so it'll do it itself. But I want you to see the number that you're going to charge your client and run it through a P&L. What will the cost of goods be? What will our gross profit be? What will our projected overhead expense be? And then what will our net income be, right? What are we left with after we pay all of our bills and our overhead, right? And so what are we left with? And if we're shooting for a net profit of 10, well, this will tell us if we'll actually get there and what price we need to get there. This is the critical steps, but we must know how to and understand how to read a P&L, guys. Just it's the number one thing that so many miss. It just has to be there. And number 3 is your monthly cost of overhead. So far too often, we don't even understand what it costs us to run our business. So we must, this may seem like table stakes, but we must understand what it costs to run our business. And guys, there's allocation issues here too, and I'll get into that here shortly. But we must understand what is in our overhead to run our business. These are not in our cost of goods. These are not in our COGS, in our profit and loss, like we have our cost of goods. We're talking in the overhead expense, the operating expense of our business. So what are these? Again, I'm going to leave you with this. This will be another bonus for you. Just so you have a breakdown of what those overheads are typically in a business. We get asked that a lot. And then you must also know, number 4, you must know what your break-even percentage is. In other words, what is your operating overhead percentage? What is the percentage that I need in a gross profit to ever start making money that's going to cover my overheads? And so there's a formula to that. We must understand what that formula is. So this is must know number 4 is how to calculate that break even. And here it's really just overheads divided by our revenue over any period of time, whether it's monthly or annually. We can break it down and start seeing where are we operating currently in our business. This example, this is a real live example. This is an example of one of our clients who's operating at 24.5% break even. And I'll show you an example of where there was mistakes made in pricing that was costing this gentleman a ton of money. And so break even is critical. That's number 4. Number 5 is how to go out and calculate gross profit, knowing how to understand what that gross profit is, right? So we're taking a $10,000 cost, we're marking it up 20%. That leaves us with a sale price of $12,000. Well, we're dividing that $2,000 not by our cost, we divide it by our sale price. And that's why we end up this $2,000 divided by 12 ends up at 16.6. So a 20% markup equals a 16.6%. 16.6% gross profit or margin. And that's what's left to pay our overhead expenses. And if we're operating, if we go back a slide here and if we're operating at a 24.5% break even, and we're ending up with a 16.6% gross profit, we don't have near enough to pay our bills. And so this is why it's so critically important to understand these 4, those 5. That was number 5. So now this is common pricing practice. And this is this same gentleman who had the 24.5%. Okay. I'll show you this as we walk through it. So you'll see this is fairly common pricing practice. Basement reno, we're walking through these numbers. These are all of our costs here, and it equals a total cost of $100,000. Now, this is pretty typical, right? And this is what we see all the time. We have a total cost of $100,000 here. Well, we might mark this up 30%. Well, the 30% markup gives us a markup amount of $30,000. Well, that $30,000 is what we're left with to pay our bills. Right? We're going to have 30 grand there in a markup, but we have to make sure that we understand what our overhead costs are here. So we might have a sale price of $130,000. Well, that seemingly would be enough money. But in this case, remember the 24.5% break even. If this was 24.5% break even, that's what that is an overhead expense, that break even amount is 24.5% of the sale price. So how do we know that we have an overhead expense? What the overhead's going to cost us $31,850? Because it's 24.5%. We're currently operating at 24.5% because we understand our break even. So when you know these things, we can start seeing, how does this start to make sense and why? Or maybe it makes sense as why I make little money, or I barely make enough money, or when I do make good money, I understand why now, right? And so this 31,850, if that's our overhead expense, but we only have $30,000 here, then this is why on the bottom line net profit of that job, we're going to show $1,850 loss. So before you go into this, this is why I want you to use our pricing for profit formula, because the formula will spit this out and tell you exactly at the end of the day, when you price it like this, just understand that this will be your outcome, right? So this is the critical piece that we need. And I hope that when we start this webinar to the end of this webinar, there's some syncing that's going on between all these the 5 things, the 7 things now that we're going to get into next that we need to avoid in these mistakes that we make. Because it's the mistakes that we make that are costing us piles of money. And if it's costing us money, we don't have the money and the resources to grow and build our teams. This is why we can't afford to go out and get off the hamster wheel ourselves. And we keep getting sucked back into the business, right? So critical piece, guys. Now, the 7 common mistakes, let's get into these, and you'll see that they correlate to the things that we must know, of course, right? That we're pricing without, we are pricing with a markup without knowing our overheads. So if we don't understand and know our overheads, yet we're pricing with a markup, and we're saying, hey, it's 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever the number is that we choose as our markup. Or if you're building custom homes and maybe you're doing cost plus and you're doing a cost plus 13 or 15, or maybe even 17, right? Now, if that's the case, will you make money? And should you know that? And can you know that? Yes. How do you know it? By knowing your overheads. By knowing what it costs you to run your business, using the formula, putting the numbers through the formula is going to tell you exactly what the outcome of that job is going to be, right? So one of the mistakes that we must avoid is you putting markups without knowing our overheads, period. Number 1. Number 2 is that we're misallocating. I mentioned this earlier. I touched on it. We're misallocating expenses in our P&Ls, right? We're misallocating where overheads should be in cost of goods. And one of the big ones coming up here in a moment is project management, guys. And we'll get to that in a second, but we can't have misallocations. When we have misallocations in our profit and loss statements, and often this is coming from a bookkeeper that would seemingly know because they're a bookkeeper, but if they don't know your industry well enough, if they don't know you as a builder remodeler or another contractor or one of the trades, they don't fully understand where the allocation should be, and you might not be able to help them either. So hopefully, again, this will be one of our bonuses, is just what could be in cost, what should be in cost of goods, what should be in overhead expenses. So maybe you can get allocation straightened out better. When you have the right data, the numbers will start spitting you out the right answers so you can make better decisions on your pricing. So this is where it all starts to kind of sink. And I hope that becomes the truth throughout this, right? So as I just mentioned, right, number 3 mistake that we make is not capturing project management in our COGS, in our cost of goods. Now, why is that so important? It's so important because we often miss that as a cost of doing our jobs, right? Especially if we're running a smaller business, we don't seemingly see ourselves that are project managing as a cost to the business. And if we continue to do that, we'll never be able to afford to pay for a project manager or add a project manager to our team without it being us, because we don't allocate project management to the cost of our jobs. This one alone will make you tens of thousands of dollars if you tackle this. For every job that you're doing, whether it's 150 a day, 200 a day, 4 hours a day at $65 an hour, so many different ways that you can skin this cat. But at the end of the day, you got to be paid for project management. And that's got to show up in your cost of goods. And the reason being is because we want to capture it. When we capture it, we'll start charging for it. Right. And if we see it as a cost, it changes our whole scope of how we think and how we price our projects. Guys, another big mistake is confusing that markup with our margin, right? Our gross profit. And confusing that messes up our percentages, which then we completely end up with a bottom line that doesn't make us any money. And we have a business that we're confused as to why am I not making enough money and at the bottom line of the whole thing is because we're confusing markup and margin. Right. So that's critical. Once we know that, we can avoid this mistake. Now, labor burden. This is a big one. I mean, how often do we run into people, and we meet them every day, that are undercharging for their labor because we're not capturing all the true costs of our labor. And so we are not getting a full burden rate. It's referred to as burden rate on our labor. So again, we have calculator and formulas to have you walk through to spit out these numbers for you. But I'll give you a very quick, simple formula. And this one does not, this right here does not include overheads. So we have to understand that this price right here, if we pay our guys $30 an hour or somewhere in that range, right? We have a burden rate typically of about $43.80, maybe to $45. But if you want to think about it without running through a formula, just think about this. Without including overhead and without including workman's comp, by the way, because workman comp often ends up in overhead expense. So without including those two things, labor burden, 1.5%. So, or a multiple of 1.5. So $30 times 1.5 will get us to our billable rate of $40 an hour, $45 an hour. So just think about it as a 1.5, right? A multiple. That way, round figures will get you to your labor burden. Now, at that point, you then mark up. You then realize, okay, well, I got to cover overhead at a certain percent, and then I've got to mark up a certain percent, and all of a sudden, I need $70, $80 an hour, and where I was charging 50. Well, now I know when I'm charging 50 an hour that why I can't make any money, even though I was paying 30, right? Seemed like I'm paying 30. And guys, how often I have heard this one is they say, okay, you pay your guys 30 an hour, but what is it costing you? And it's deer in headlights, right? So it's like, well, it's costing me, I just told you $30 an hour. Guys, it's not. There's a burden rate that has to be attached here, okay? And so avoid these mistakes. Number 6, we're not comparing estimates to actuals. Now, this is one reason out of many why I love JobTread, because this is done for you on the fly. In fact, we had Riley, if any of you met Riley, is amazing. Had him come and speak to one of our groups that are all JobTread users in our program. And we went through this and, the estimates, you can do estimates to actuals on the fly in JobTread if you're using your system properly. And for God's sakes, guys, you got the best tool on the market in your hands in JobTread that is so financially based at its core, it's built from. And so leverage what's there. Leverage what's there. We must know estimates to actuals. We need to know what we thought was going to happen and then compare it to what actually happened. Because if we just keep going and we don't slow down to speed up enough here, what's going to happen is we're missing out on the elements that are happening over and over and over, and we could have caught them if we just slowed down enough to do some estimates to actuals, right? So this is one you have to avoid, and JobTread has made it easy for you guys. In most cases, using any other software, it's not that easy. JobTread puts it right in your hands. You cannot miss it, right? But you got to use JobTread the way it's built to be used. And number 7, last thing that we need to be avoiding, and this is another big one, we are pricing based on false overhead expenses. Now, what do I mean by that? Right? Once you understand your overhead and you say, well, oh shit, my overhead's pretty low. Well, if it's too low, it's likely because your business is not set up and established to have much overhead, maybe an administrative team, or you're not spending money on marketing that at one point we'll have to spend if we got to get it, if we ever want to get outside of word of mouth, right? We've got to spend more money in our business, so we can't operate at a low overhead expense and use that number to base our pricing on. What happens when we do that? So what happens is you continue to price at this low overhead number. And what will you always be able to afford if you do that? You'll be able to afford low to no overhead because you've never accounted for it. So we have to start accounting for a higher overhead when we start to use the pricing formula that I'm going to give you guys. When you use this pricing formula and you understand what the overhead is, then we have to understand. This is why I say go through this cash assessment tool, guys. We're gonna provide you back some answers and explanations and a game plan to be able to understand, how do I take what I'm doing today? How do I make sure I avoid these 7 mistakes? And how do I leave understanding how to price in future that's going to give me an outcome that I've been wanting for years and maybe have never been able to achieve? And it could be some simple tweaks to just how you look at your numbers, understand them, and start leveraging them, right? So we cannot operate, we cannot charge, we can't base our pricing on an overhead that's too low, because you will always be able to afford exactly that. So we have to raise that bar, raise that game if we want to grow and scale our business, period. Now, I'm going to get into the 4 ways to increase profit. Some of these, in the first couple, you probably go, well, that's logical, Randy. Well, thanks very much. I didn't want to wait around all this time for that. Because what is it? Number 1, increase price, right? Now, here's the thing with increased price. We have to be able to sell that price. This is why I want to leave you with our book, because at the end of the day, you can't show up in, I'm not going to say this in all cases, right? Because it's not, true across the board. But in many cases, we can't show up the way we've been showing up and expect to be able to charge more money and deserve to get paid that money. We have to show up differently. We have to outperform our competition from the sales point of view. And we have an entire sales system that walks you through 5 secret weapons to closing more deals at higher price points in this book. And this is why I leave this book with you here, because it's so important to closing more deals and raising the bar on that price point, right? How you show up is critical. And getting the right clients, right? The right clients, being in front of the right clients that are willing to pay the right amount of money. And then you have to separate yourself from the competition. But I'm going to go through these 4 ways. And again, this is pretty logical, right? Increase price. Well, of course, if I increase price, I should make more money on the bottom line profit, right? Yes. And here's the thing, as I go through this, guys, imagine starting to compound and multiply these 4, because if you can multiply these 4, it's a 10x multiplier on your bottom line. It's not just a slight bump. It's an exponential bump in your profit. And this is where real profitability comes from, when you can start working on all 4 of these. So I start with the 1, increasing price. Number 2, what we have to be able to do is increase our monthly revenue. Now, why would that be so important to do? Doing more revenue, increasing the amount of work that we can get done with the same amount of overhead, or increasing overhead at a rate that is far less than our revenue grows. So we need to outrun our revenue. We need to outrun our overhead expense with our revenue, right? So we have to be able to increase our monthly revenue. Now, what does that mean? I need to be able to systematize the business to grow and scale, to be able to handle more work, be more effective and efficient, be more productive at the same cost or price point in my overheads. What will that do? Well, if we understand and we know our break even, which I've talked about before, and this is why I share this here. This little slide here is so critically important. Remember, our break even was 24%, right? 24.5% actually. And these are real numbers. This is a real client, real situation. Well, if this client was able to, and I'll just say, round figures, let's say they could double the amount of revenue for the same overhead expense, right? Just for easy math. If they doubled that, what would happen? This would drop this would drop down to 12.25%. It would cut our break even in half. So our break even would be in half if we could charge more money. This is the multiplier effect. If we can increase price but drop our break even, boom, we have a multiplier. We have an extreme multiplier on our bottom line profit. That is the gold, guys. It is in the combination of these four numbers that I'm going to share with you here. That's number 2, is increasing monthly. Remember, number 1, increase price. We can increase price and increase the amount of work we can get done in a month by, a substantial amount. We can do more, but keep our overheads the same. Oh my God, we have a multiplier in our bottom line profit because it takes less percentage to make more money. Now, number 3, of course, and this is one that I often say, guys, I don't think often you guys are in a position to do this. I don't advocate this one unless you're in a certain position. This is why we always need to get and dig into your world so we understand where you are in your business, what is the biggest, impact that we'll have. This typically is not it by lowering overheads. In fact, we often have to increase overheads in order to even start making some more money. Right. But if you imagine, if I could decrease my monthly or annual overhead expense, along with increasing price, along with doing more monthly, I take that 12.25 break even percent that I just got, and I even reduce it more. I get it down to 8 or 10%. Now, all of those extra percentages are just going right to your bottom line, and not just to your bottom line, they go to your pocket. At the end of the day, they go to your pocket because that's the money that we can draw from. This is the money that we can increase our salary from. This is the money that we can actually hire more people from. The A players that cost us too much money to get on our team right now, this is how we afford them, by understanding our numbers. Remember what I said, by knowing and understanding what a P&L and how to read that is and what it means to your business. All of these numbers, I hope that it starts to sink into place and lock something in this brain and say, oh my God, I can see how I can make a whole lot more money if I just follow this system, right? Now, that's number 3. Number 4 is, of course, reduce the cost per job. So instead of it costing $100K to do that basement rental job that we talked about, you're pricing it at the $100K, but you end up doing it for $95,000. You found a way to shave some money. Maybe you paid a bill a little faster. Maybe you shaved a Home Depot bill, or you were able to negotiate a better rate with a sub, or anything along the lines. Now, again, we don't advocate going out and shaving numbers off of trades that you valuably need to grow your business, right? So you have to be strategic in all of these things that I'm suggesting. Having better trade partners, shopping better, buying power. As increase in revenues, we can have better buying power. I mean, using, JobTread reduces our costs substantially. You're smart enough to do that. There's other ways to do that in our jobs, right? So when you start thinking about that multiplier effect, right? If you take these 4x multiplier, we can do all 4 of them. And I'll flip back very quickly. If we can increase price, if we can increase the amount we do on a monthly basis, keep it the same or even decrease our overheads, and we can decrease the cost of a job that we estimated from, because we got smarter, we bought better, we slowed down to speed up and figured out ways to save money there. It goes right to that bottom line. There's more percentages in there. And you really take that multiplier of making 10 points on a job to making 20. And this is where we get asked the question all the time: what should I be making? I'm going to share this with you when you fill out your cash assessment, right? What could and should we be making? Well, what I'm going to give you in terms of results is the could and should be making is this. I'm going to share the result of how can you go to 10xing your, and I know 10x is a big number and it may seem a little elusive, but really when you start seeing what I just shared with you, I hope that you can see and understand how this is possible. because it is, and we've helped many, many, many do it. And really, it's just a matter of understanding the business, being a little more business savvy and financially literate to be able to pull off and make this happen. Now, guys, I mentioned earlier about a couple more bonuses for you. We will have, I think in chat, Katie will likely be throwing in chat here for you now, a couple of bonuses that we want to make sure that you walk away with. And this is one of them is the cost of goods and the overhead tools and our Sweet 16. So you can have this in front of you and really, start to work on your numbers. And as I mentioned before, we're going to put a link in chat as well here. Provide you a link for this cash assessment. Now, everyone, I mean, there's 76 or 80 people on this call here or on this webinar. Every one of you, take advantage of this. What I'm going to share with you is the stuff that you ask me for all the time, or at least we get asked all the time, is what should I be making? What should my margins be? And we're going to ask for 8 numbers from you, and we'll calculate everything else and show you exactly what you're making today, where you stand today, and then get you back results. And get you back results so that you can see, where do I stand? What should I be doing? How can I get to that next level? And there's 2 ways that we can do this for you, right? If you prefer not to speak to us and don't want to get on an assessment call, I get it, understand it. We will email you the results. And this is why I say every one of you, do the cash assessment for yourself. Get that information so that you can move forward with this and start to see what you're doing today and where you could be. And even if you want to do it on your own, just start working that yourself. Now, if you want to get on an assessment call with us, we can get you not only the results, but we'll go through it and we'll get you an explanation of exactly why you're where you are, what needs to change, some very low-hanging fruit to make some changes to get you to the next level quickly, and then a game plan to leave with. Because if you don't have a game plan to get some results and actually turn this around, then we end up doing the same old stuff. And the same old stuff may not be getting us to where we want to go. And if we have big visions and big ambitions, this is what will turn it around. This will change the game. So, a couple of ways to do it. Everyone do it, because you just do an email. If you want to get on an assessment call with us, we can do that too. Now, on this assessment call, this is what we're going to do with you. And we're going to go through this cash assessment. As I said, number 1, we'll go through the cash assessment. You'll leave with a game plan. You'll understand where you stack up to the industry. You understand what you could be making, where the holes are. This is going to show you big gaps and holes in your boat and why you're not where you want to be, right? So it'll become, glaringly obvious as we go through this. And if we're on the call, I can walk through it, show you exactly what that looks like. And again, when we get to booking the call with us, if you do it quick enough, I have lots of space open, but certainly don't have enough for everyone. So it'll go to my team, but our team is well equipped to walk through this with you. So first come, we'll definitely get myself to walk through it on with you. Now, number 2 is we also need to look at one of your estimates. So on that on this call, we will ask you to bring an estimate so that we can see, how are you pricing a job today? What are the markups? What is the strategies? Now, I can pretty much tell you, based on your cash assessment that we'll go through with you, how you're doing it, but this will confirm it. And then we'll make sure that we leave you with a game plan on how to turn that pricing around, right? So that's going to be important for this call. Your cash assessment game plan, your pricing assessment game plan. And then, as I mentioned, before, we want to leave you with this pricing for profit tool. I want you to have the formula in your hands. So you only have to put in 4 numbers on this pricing tool. It's going to ask you for your monthly overhead. It's going to ask you for your monthly revenue. It's going to ask you for what this job's going to cost you. And then, what do you want to make? What is your desired net profit? Not how much you're going to mark this up. We're going to give the formula as exactly how you have to mark this up if you want to make 10%, 15, 20%, 25% net profits or more. So if you've been in exactly where you guys stand in your business, monthly overhead, monthly revenue, what the job will cost you, and your desired outcome, we'll get that. And the formula is yours, right? But you got to book the call, show up for us. We'll work with you through it. We'll do these assessments. We'll give you your game plans, and I'll leave you with this formula to basically remove all of the guesswork. So you don't need to worry about guesswork anymore on the pricing side. And then, of course, we'll leave you with our book too on that call. So feel free, jump on this now. Book calls with me. I got calls open today, tomorrow, and Friday, and then into Monday. So if you want to do that now, feel free. There should be links in there. Make sure you get your cash assessment and book your call here. And if you prefer not to book the call, just do the cash assessment and we'll get you an email back. We'll make sure you get your email back on the cash assessment so you at least get the results, guys, okay? And so all links should be in there. Leave it open to Q&A. As I would imagine, Eric, we have some time or lots of time for Q&A if anybody has any.
Yeah, appreciate that, Randy. That was very, very awesome, very insightful. I don't know if you saw, but Lorena said, I wish I could have known you guys before I hired someone that cost us hundreds.
Yeah, I mean, this is simple. Like really pricing, there's an illusion to pricing that it's an illusion because we just don't know the formula, right? And that's really what it's about. Sorry, I'll walk through that again. But it's an illusion only because we don't know the formula to the end. Yeah. That's the problem.
Looks like we have Tim had asked, where can we get the sales system book?
So it is not out yet. But again, if you want to jump on an assessment call with us, get everything else, and we'll get you the book as soon as it comes out. I would imagine it will be out before Christmas. Let's put it that way, probably by end of November.
Awesome. Yeah.
And we'll have it on, it will be on Amazon for sure. But if you reach out and email me, I'll make sure you get a copy of the book anyway. If you want to send me an email, Randy@4levelcoach.
Awesome. So Stephanie here said, I used the link and it does not allow downloads.
Well, that is not good, is it? Maybe we can get you a new link in there quickly if Ahmed is on, and we can get that going.
Okay, yeah, Jackie said it worked for her, so maybe
okay.
I had to log in to my Gmail to get them. It's all one document. So it sounds like some other people have been getting it. Stephanie, if you're not able to get it, then definitely connect with Randy. With us, and we can make sure you get the resources.
And feel free. I mean, either Randy@4levelcoach or on the screen here is info@4levelcoach as well.
Yeah. Let's see, Pat. I see you. You raised your hand here. Did you have a question, or we got Pat O'Keefe on? Perhaps if you'd like to talk there, we could allow you to do that as well. Any other questions? Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, Pat.
Hey, so I'm interested. So we're a deck builder. We do as many as maybe 10 jobs a month, but that tends to fluctuate. And I'm wondering how do you come up with a break even when you have an overhead cost basically? When you run a different amount of jobs every week, or every month? Is it just adding up those jobs and then dividing that number by the number of jobs?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question, and one that everyone runs into in some way, shape, or form when they have peaks and valleys, right? Now, you as a deck builder, are you in the South? Are you building year round, or are you?
We're in Colorado, and yes, we build year round.
Okay, so you are building year round, but you have these spikes, right? You have great months and you have slower months. We have to take an average of all of those months, because on the month where it's way you're doing a lot more revenue, your break even is going to drop. But then there's the next month where break even spikes. And so we have to look at an average of, and we typically say 3 months back and 3 months forward. So what do you have coming up? What do you have 3 months back? That's going to give you a pretty good idea of where you currently stand in your break even. Now you have fairly short job cycles, right? Like you're doing jobs within, depending on the size of the project, I imagine it could be pretty elaborate, but your job times are, within a week to a few days to a month, right?
Usually 2 weeks to several months, but yeah,
Okay.
roughly.
So short job frame times. That's why we look out a few months. Because if we look out and we can estimate what we've got coming, we can also see, hey, if I've got a big influx of what's coming, I know my break even is going to drop a little less. But that doesn't mean we should lower price. We want to keep price where it is. We just know that these coming months, we should be making more money. And so just understanding these numbers and understanding these flux in our business is going to help us tremendously.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, looks like Aaron has asked here. So when talking about projected margins versus margin needed based on percentage, how do you compensate for different size jobs and needed OHE based on expected timeline of jobs? Sometimes a 100K job will take half as long as a 500K job, but is a fifth of the cost. It's hard to justify keeping a 35% margin on a 750K job.
Right. Yes, 1000%. And here's the thing. The larger the project, this is why in our cash assessment, we ask for average job size. And we have to understand job sizes because job sizes are going to make a difference to, you do $100,000 job or $1 million job. We're talking about different margins that are required there. We're doing $1 million jobs. Our monthly revenue is likely far more than us trying to, pile in a whole bunch of smaller jobs. And so as our job sizes go up, of course, our need for that percentage comes down, right? And in fact, we have to be competitive too. $1 million job, we're not getting a 35-40% markup on it, right? So we have to understand both of those factors. But we have to really look at how are those factors affecting our break even, right? The lower cost job, the higher price job. And what it is, it's all about the number, the overhead divided by our money, our sale price.
So Toby is asking, I said, I've been hearing about capacity-based markup. Are you familiar with that metric?
So, and capacity-based, and what you're referring to is really at the end of the day, looking at your team and your team's ability to achieve a result. And here's the thing that I like. I like the thinking behind the capacity based, but here's what I believe, that capacity can increase when we understand how we can take that break even down by increasing the volume that we can do. When we can do more capacity than we have by building our team, and if we're strategically ready to scale, we have systems and training in place and the right people in the pipeline to take our business to the next level. Capacity there isn't a capacity ceiling that I want you to be worried about. So I get it, but on the capacity side, we want to remove the ceiling of capacity to be able to continue to grow and scale. If that makes sense. And I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, totally makes sense to me. So do you have any type of sliding scale or something like that? Or what's the best way to figure out how much to charge margin based on the width of price ranges?
Well, at the end of the day, it all comes down to how you're currently operating in your business. And we cannot get away from the simple fact of what you have. Here's the only sliding scale that let me go back so I can at least bring this up or show this, which comes back to this here, right? So when we think about that sliding scale of job size, at the end of the day, this does not lie. It cannot lie. It tells the truth every time. Is what am I doing in my business on a monthly revenue And that monthly revenue multiplied over a handful of months forward and back. And that really tells me this is where I stand right now. If I've been doing small jobs and I get the opportunity to quote this monster, right? I'm going to take on the monster. I'm going to go from doing $100,000 jobs to 750 or $1 million project. And it's like, holy shit, if I get this, this changes the game. Well, that were to be true. Well, if you get this project, the way on sliding scale, I would look at sliding scale is say, if I close this deal and I got this project, how long is this project? What am I estimating? 8 months, a year, 12 months? What is it? And if I can say it's 8 months and it's $1 million project, and I'm going to estimate X amount of revenue per month, then I'm going to take that revenue and I'm going to change my formula here. Because if I close this deal, that's what it's going to mean to my business at that time moving forward. So that's the sliding scale is going to affect this break-even number, right? That's the only way to look at this. If it's anything other than the number that tells you what it is there, you're not going to make money on it if you do anything less. So you have to be careful about how you're currently operating. And often one big project doesn't change the game enough to take the price point down where you can be real profitable. There is a machine that has to be created in the process. That's the sliding scale model. Does that make sense, Eric? For you? Yeah.
Awesome. So,
and again, if I'm not answering the questions well enough, or if it's not clear enough, just, throw it back in there and we'll make sure we do.
Yeah. And also, again, just want to reiterate that, Randy's got a really awesome group, him and the people that are, that are working with 4-level coach, very talented, they really know their numbers. They know their stuff. I've seen the impact that they've been able to make on, contractors' businesses. So, definitely check them out. You've got their contact information. You can get in touch with them directly through our marketplace. But these are great guys that they know their stuff, and they can help you make sure that you're building, the best business. So, again, I think it's really important that everyone, regardless who you're working with, like, if you don't have a well-oiled machine and you haven't dialed it in, then you need to take the time to get your numbers dialed in so that you can make sure that you're building the most successful, the most profitable business that you can. You owe it to yourself, to your employees, and to your customers to build a great company.
And just so I can make mention, yes, you can definitely get with us through Marketplace 100%. And I should have mentioned this being a webinar bonus, right? Like this is specifically through webinar. What we're doing through Marketplace is getting you this assessment calculator and doing that for you. But I wanted to add in, again, you guys have shared your time with us here. I want to make sure you get more by being here than we can offer anywhere else. And so that's this pricing assessment, getting into your actual numbers, your pricing, your assessments, you understand where you stand, and then giving you a couple extra tools and bonuses for being here on the webinar with us too. So just to clarify that.
Awesome. So a couple other things came in. So Greg said we should not give away our discounts.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not, so just to clarify, when we have a discounted, we pay less for our cost of a project. Don't charge less, take advantage of that paying less. And this is the 4 ways to increase profit, right? So one of those 4 ways, and that was the 4th, was to actually pay less for our projects. And don't give away that discount. That is you just running your business better than the next guy, right? And if you can figure that out, that's how you multiply your bottom line. And this is the thing, guys, we're going to share that cash assessment, right? And when you see on the cash assessment how much more you could and should be making, it will be an eye opener. 2, it will shock you. And 3, you'll probably go, holy shit. But at the end of the day, what it's there to do is to show you, okay, if I utilize the things that we just talked about and we give you this game plan to actually execute it, it's really like the magic is in the exponential of the multiplier by doing the things that we showed you.
Yep. So, and that's, when I ran the GC, that was very common. We would sell it, sell the project. Once we get it sold, then we go back in and review, all the different opportunities, the subs, the suppliers that we're going to be working with. And we try to buy back, some of that to get a better deal, even after the fact, but that doesn't change the price that we sold the project at. It's, again, it's just more margin on top. So Sean here, so knowing the break-even percentage, how do you use the information when estimating? For example, it's a 24.5%. What markup would then make sense for an estimate?
So one, if you take us up on that, the formula, that pricing for profit formula, it will spit out exactly what you need on terms of a markup to get a desired net profit out. So that's the gold in that tool, is that'll tell you exactly where you need to be. Now, based on, if you need it's a 24.5%, you need 10% out. You need to be up and around the range of 35%, 35 plus. Now, most times the rule of thumb for, the average renovation job, you need to be doing 35 to 40 plus, because most are operating at 20, 25% overhead, because we're not doing enough revenue. That's the challenge. We don't have, our business isn't of size yet to lower that break even to that number. And here's the thing, the gold in this cash assessment is I'm going to show you where your break even should be in your business, depending on where you are, what size. And again, the results are one thing, but when we can dive into your world on a call, this is where I can actually really understand you and your business better to actually give you, better results than I can by shooting an email. Even though the email will be valuable, but it's nowhere near what we can do if we actually dive into your business.
Yeah. So Audrey asked, how will we receive the calculator?
So if you click on the link for the calculator, it will look like this. Boom. One more, right there. So it will look like this. And that we need 8 numbers from you. When you provide the 8 numbers, then I'll spit it back to you in this format over here on the left.
Great.
If we do email, otherwise we'll get on the call, we'll dig into it.
So Robert has asked, so how would you figure out costs on inventory usage, i.e. a multiplier for that cost? And he clarified on-hand inventory through bulk purchases to keep on hand for jobs.
Yeah, which is fantastic. If you're what is this gentleman doing, right? He's leveraging bulk purchasing to keep the cost of the project down. But I would be pricing my job at the market value of what somebody's going to buy it for on the street. Your competitors are buying it for, right? But you have been intelligent enough to operate your business at a level where you have some inventory. Now, maybe you're a plumber or electrician, or, one of the trades, or maybe a remodeler that has, lumber on in inventory, whatever that case is. Yes, we want to be using inventory and bulk purchasing. This is where we find extra points. This is the multiplier. And that's that whole point of the 4 ways to increase profit.
Exactly.
So fantastic.
So Aaron has asked, on margins, would you suggest analyzing and adjusting yearly, quarterly, or monthly, or something else?
So, I mean, you can adjust monthly, but the fact is, monthly is not going to give you the number. You really need to look at larger time frames and know that that's how you operate on a general basis. Because the gentleman earlier said, the deck builder, right, says, they have fluctuations. We have great months, great weeks, and as we have those, they fluctuate. The next month isn't quite the same. And so we have to, if we just adjust month to month, that's not going to do it. I like to look at least a 6-month time frame, 3 months back, 3 months forward. And my 3 months forward, guys, also forces you to understand what you got in the pipeline, right? What's coming, what potential contracts are there. Now, again, I know you all run different businesses, so it's not, an exact science, because this isn't black and white, right? But we should have some form of understanding about what we have coming, because what we have coming is the true fact of what the numbers are going to be.
All right, Randy. Well, look, I know you well enough to know that, you know, we could do this all day long.
Oh my God.
Because you and I have done it for hours.
Yeah.
Long before. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up now. We're at the top of the hour here, but, you know, again, I wanted to appreciate everyone for your time today, for coming out to learn these strategies. You know, obviously, you know, if you've learned a little bit or a lot today, you know, do reach out to Randy, get in touch with him, because, you know, we just scratched the surface on what they can do to help you continue building out a really profitable business. So thank you again. Thank you, Randy, for your time to share all the insight with the JobTread community. And we look forward to seeing you continue to be very involved with our group. And I hope to see more JobTread customers joining you here shortly.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, guys. Go make some more money.
All righty. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.